to Central.
A bridge collapsed, the walkway bridge on Highway 29 at racetrack.
Yeah, well, what do you find the bridge collapse?
The bridge over 29 at the racetrack, the pedestrian bridge just collapsed.
We're just walking across, everybody trying to get out of the track, and I heard a crack first time, and second crack, it just went down, and everybody was on top of each other. It was awful. I mean, I figured somebody was going to get killed in it, but luckily everybody got out all right.
I mean, I just seen it. We were getting ready to walk under it, and it was like the middle of it just caved in, and everybody just started sliding down it like it was a slide board.
I just heard like two booms, and I thought like somebody was slamming a cooler down, but then the last thing I knew, I was falling backwards.
About 50 people to 75 people involved when the bridge first went down. Here are the pictures we have from the scene shortly after the bridge went down.
The big news was tragedy outside the racetrack.
Just walking across, everybody trying to get out of the track.
As fans headed home from the annual All-Star Race, the walkway across Highway 29 simply collapsed, 17 feet down to the highway below.
Everybody was on top of each other. It was awful. I mean, I figured somebody was going to get killed in it, but
shockingly, nobody was killed, but 114 people were hurt that night. As the chaos unfolded, we stayed on the air until the early hours of the morning.
And that is the perfect picture there, Sterling, you saw just moments ago on this unedited video.
The story that weekend was survival. You'll remember, it was the All-Star Race. The Speedway had to quickly get things in gear for the Coca-Cola 600. On track for the very next weekend.
Winston Cup win, #1.
The Speedway pulled it together and got back to racing. It was Matt Kenseth with the checkered flag.
And I remember starting across the ramp. There was a lady beside me, and we got just about to the middle, and I heard a crack, and it rumbled. And it dropped, big crack, and it dropped. And I looked down, and I saw the pavement coming. And although it probably took a couple of seconds, it seemed longer, and I thought, this is it for you, big boy.
Instead, Mark suddenly found himself surrounded by screaming people. When he tried to get up, pain shot through his legs, and he fell to the ground.
They're trying to get the swelling to go down so he can operate on it.
Mark has a broken right foot and a broken left ankle. He says doctors won't know just how bad it is until they operate. Surgeon Michael Bossi says they're seeing the same kinds of injuries with all the accident victims. They simply weren't ready for the collapse and generally fell standing with stiff, straight legs.
They take the load first on their feet. It travels up their legs to the pelvis and spine, and all of these get compressive forces. And we typically see patients with heel bone fractures, tibia fractures, femur fractures, and pelvic fractures and spine fractures.
Dr. Bossi says it usually takes 3 months or more for bone injuries to heal. But Mark isn't thinking about those long months ahead. He just feels lucky to have gotten through Saturday night.
Other than glad to be alive and glad to have my mom waiting on me outside. I just want it to be over with.
Thousands of people, thousands of cars. It was an uncomfortable situation for Stephanie and Tim Hurley.
There's too many cars and stuff. A lot of traffic. Too many.
Let's hold up here. Come on, let's go.
Crosswalks were substituted for the pedestrian walkways. Troopers and Concord police kept the cars and people separated.
Well, you got to get these people across. Used to, we didn't have this to worry about. We had everybody going across on the bridge there and the other bridge. But so far, it's been real congested.
Well, this is what it used to be.
Yeah.
Years ago, this is the way it was. You had to walk across 29, and it was no big deal.
What's that now?
It's a bigger deal today because the Speedway holds almost 50,000 more fans.
We just sort of shift what we had. We brought in 183 troopers last weekend, and for this weekend, just sort of moved them around a little bit, and brought in some extra Concord to help us out over here.
The sirens from this night are now setting off other alarms inside Lowe's Motor Speedway headquarters as a bombardment of legal papers rains down. Lawsuits coming in fast and furious from the more than 100 victims of this walkway collapse.
Those are the two viable defendants that we see at this point.
Chris Moriello is the first, certainly not the last, attorney to file legal papers on behalf of several of those victims. His targets, Tyndall Concrete, the makers of the bridge, and Lowe's Motor Speedway, the bridge's owner. Moriello started his case not with the May 20th walkway collapse, but with last year's deadly IRL accident, contacting Marvin Blount, a Greenville attorney who represented those victims and their families in that lawsuit.
We obviously developed substantial information about the internal operations of the Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, who is in fact the owner of Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it makes sense to inquire and find out what you can about who could possibly be a defendant in a case.
Blount used that information to settle the IRL suit out of court. He was just hired to represent an unspecified number of the victims from the walkway incident and would like to see similar results.
Going to trial is not the best solution for either side, yet sometimes we're forced to do that. And I think in this case that the thing that should happen is for the parties to sit down and see if they can't resolve this without litigation. And I believe that Humpy Wheeler is the kind of man that wants to do the right thing, and that Charlotte Motor Speedway wants to do the right thing.
Let me get you to stand.
They are the first real steps Dick Brenner has taken in years.
And bring your left foot forward just a little bit.
His legs were crushed 10 years ago.
I remember hearing two large ping noises.
Brenner had gone to a race at what was then Lowe's Motor Speedway back in 2000.
I really had never gone to a NASCAR race.
He was among the first on the new pedestrian walkway.
I don't remember hitting. I do remember falling and feeling that elevator feeling in your stomach, you know. But when I woke up, I was kind of covered up with people.
107 people were hurt, Brenner the worst among them.
My back was broken and my pelvis was broken. And what happened is nerves were cut.
He remembers asking his wife just how bad it was right before going in for what would be the first of a dozen surgeries.
Then I said, "Will I ever walk again?" And she said, "Of course you will." We didn't know it was with a prosthesis.
I'll get you to stand when you're ready.
In his past life, Brenner called the shots. He was a big shot, the president of HR at Texaco, managed 450 people and a $29 million budget. He and his wife had just retired to their dream home in Davidson when the walkway collapsed.
I didn't figure coming down here to retire I'd wind up losing a leg and being unable to walk, but it happens.
He learned he now had to rely on others.
You learn humility, patience.
He says his newly adopted church, Davidson Methodist, and its members rallied around him.
There were times that I felt almost picked right up off my bed from the prayers that were being said for my recovery. It was just astonishing.
So once he recovered, he says he had no choice but to come out of retirement.
We talk about what you need to do to find a job.
He now runs a class open to the public, teaching people like Tim Bagnell to network to land a job.
And how much do you charge for all this?
Nothing.
It's free.
Not a thing. It's free.
In the 10 years since his accident, since he started the class, 400 people have found work.
He provides a source of encouragement.
You could have given up.
No, I couldn't have. I'm not that kind of a quitter.
There's something else he hasn't given up.
I have this dream of dancing with my wife again.
I'm limping. You're doing good, though.
That is something I hold dear, to be able to hold her in my arms and dance.
But he knows, like the people he's helping back to work, It's one step at a time.
Good.
In Davidson, Michelle Bowden, News Channel 36.